Dude, the deal that I made the most money on, it had it was in tax foreclosure suit since 2018. It had been sitting on the county docket for 6 years. It had been sitting on a mainstream website of foreclosures for 2 years. And a couple investors came in and couldn't get the deal done, and we just stuck with it till we did. We bought a industrial tract, just high level. We bought a piece of industrial land in Dallas, a Dallas zip code, like a 6 acres, beautiful area. It was just this prime deal. Bought it for 200K and sold it for 800K. That's like the high level of it, with very little other than putting the 200,000 in it. Like it was a pretty, it wasn't a straightforward deal, but that was it. It was that never touch the land, list it on the market and sell it. That was the largest spread I've created on a deal. A property that has an encumbrance isn't going to make it through a traditional sale process, right? So if we have a property that has, let's just name a couple, okay? It has some sort of like ownership heirship issue, okay? Grandpa died, will wasn't probated, something happened, and now there's a person on the deed who's dead, and the title company is trying to issue title policy, do all the traditional things. Not going to work. Okay. So that property is encumbered. Maybe there's things that are landlocked, deed restricted, tax lawsuits. Both taxes and tax lawsuits are two different buckets. General lawsuits, liens and judgments. There's all sorts of things that lead to a property being encumbered. Somebody died without a will, without a husband, and without children. That's a unique problem, right? That's a unique problem, but it's something that happens. And no will, no husband, no children means there's nowhere for the assets to flow. There's nowhere for her belongings to go. And so that is a specific type of encumbrance you could look for. Is people that have passed away with either very challenging lineages to solve or with no clear direct path of heirship. And so that was the problem in both of these deals. So somebody died and the interest in the property went back up through the family tree. It's called the intestate succession, but it goes back up to the family tree and out to the living heirs. So it goes up to her parents, out to her parents' siblings, and down those trees. And anybody who's living is going to get a fractional piece of that deal. It doesn't happen that often, and it often happens on properties that are less valuable because more valuable properties, typically people like pay the attorney $2,000 to make sure this doesn't happen. But every now and then, and actually there's a lot more of those out there than you'd think. I could go off track for a long time, so I'm not going to. But both those deals look the same way. We had to figure out like what happened, right? We had to build a family tree, to put it very simply. What's the family tree from this person up and out through their lineage? We had to talk to family members. We had to confirm, like, is this really her mom's sister or is it is it her half sister? What is it? And that was the solution to both of those deals. One was a lot more difficult and made us 15 or 20 grand. And the other one was still difficult, but it made us 600,000. And so I think there's a lot of discrepancy you can see in these deals. Harris County, Texas, where you could go live in. You could stay there and you could do 20, 30, 40,000 dollar deals forever. And here's why. They have really good public data access. So in the state of Texas and in a lot of states, when you have a foreclosure, like a civil foreclosure on an asset because of unpaid taxes, it has to pass through like a legal proceeding, right? There's constitutional rights you have, so the government can't take your property. So they have to sue you for it and get access to it and sell it through due process. And they have to make the excess funds available to you. There's all sorts of stuff that goes on. But it has to go through a lawsuit. That's the important thing. And it's public record. Okay. So anything that's been like, if you go to a website right now, there's a couple of them, mvba.com, lgbs.com. These are law firms that represent most of the big counties in the state of Texas. That's like the two. And then there's a lot of small ones, but 80% of the stuff goes through them. They just post the tax sales every month on their websites. So it's not rocket science to find those. Those have competition though. If you go one step back and you look in the county records for properties that have tax foreclosures, you can find the stuff that goes on their website for auction 6, 12, 18 months before it actually goes on the website for auction. because that's how long the lawsuits take, sometimes longer. And so there's a slew of these deals that are just like right under the nose. And there's so many of these things. Here's another one. Notice of defaults filed in public record. So if you can track public record, notice of default on a mortgage, it's like a civil procedural thing, at least in the state of Texas, that a mortgage trustee has to do before they can start the foreclosure process. We all know how to look up land records. If you can search for notice of default, that's often what is a pre-foreclosure list on PropStream or places like that. Is it's a public land record that's a notice of default, which is cool, but we wanted to go one step deeper. And so we really got into the court data, which is super messy and hard to make sense of. And that's where we found our niche. I bought half of a house in Washington D.C. for 15 grand. I don't know when I'll see it, but I know it's worth about 300K. And for them to get it through probate and sell it, they're going to need my 50%. It's a mess. I don't know if I'll see that money for a year or two or longer, probably like
Yeah.
potentially longer with how it's developing. But I bought 150K of equity for 15K. Seems like a good bet to have if it takes 1 year or 2 years or longer, right?
Yeah.
So it's super
Sure.
dependent on brain damage, money, and what's the likelihood we have of success.